Hello guys, welcome to another virtual biology lesson. We have finished the chapter regarding human reproduction and human development, and now it's time for us to start the final chapter, and this chapter will be devoted to how our organisms deal with everything, how they make everything work properly. And this is the most general chapter out of all of chapters that we have been talking about. And guys, you have many systems located inside your body, and they serve different functions, but none of them is able to work on its own. For instance, muscle system lets you move only when it's provided with nutrients that are obtained through digestive system, and oxygen from respiratory system. And both of them, nutrients and oxygen, are delivered by circulatory system. And this cooperation of all systems lets your organism achieve the internal equilibrium, czyli stan równowagi wewnętrznej. This is the state where everything just works perfectly fine, properly. There are no abruptions to functioning of this. And guys, the ability of an organism to sustain its inner balance is called homeostasis. Homeostaza po polsku. Keeping this state is necessary for the complete functioning of an organism. There are many natural controlling mechanisms, all conducted by nervous and endocrine system. Uh, Among all of the systems, as far as keeping internal equilibrium and homeostasis is regarded, nervous and endocrine systems are the most important. And there are a few elements that need to be kept at a fixed level in order for the body to function properly. And this is body temperature, blood pressure, chemical composition of tissues, and concentration of water. And let's start with the concentration of water. Guys, why is it so important? 70% of our organism is water. All the cells, statistically saying, are 70% water. If there is not enough water, then the cells will start to dry out and they will not be able to perform their vitals. If there is too much water, then everything will basically dilute and the chemical reactions that are absolutely necessary for the survival of a cell will not be able to take place. And guys, if you have not enough water in your body, you feel thirst, you want to drink something. And this is the first signal that basically your organism is dying. Please do something, please drink water. But another thing that is happening simultaneously is the fact that the retrieval of water in kidneys increases. So the water that previously was meant to be excreted by the kidneys outside of the body at this time is taken back again to the circulation in the body. When we have too much water, our organism will get rid of it by urinating more frequently, and that urine will be more diluted, will contain much more water. Please remember that parts of water are also removed through skin and lungs. Through skin by sweat and through lungs by water vapor. Guys, chemical composition of tissues is absolutely crucial as well. Because think of cells that create those tissues as independent organisms that just gather together and they cooperate in order to make you function. But they are not machines. They are not computers that can be programmed to do something. The principle that makes them live are basically chemical reactions. And some chemical reactions, in order to occur, they require a uh, perfectly stated concentration of some elements. So the cell spends much of the energy it produces to maintain the perfect concentration of certain elements inside the cell compared to the outside of the cell. Because there are no pumps like we do. When we want to do something, we just take it and bring it home. The only way that a cell can maintain a fixed concentration of some elements is so-called the gradient of concentration. So where you have a bigger concentration of something outside the cell and a lower concentration of this thing inside the cell, the gradient is high. So there is a huge concentration of something outside the cell, so the elements will start to get into the cell. And this process is called osmosis. Osmoza po polsku. And guys, cells, they have to maintain the perfect gradients of concentrations for various elements in order to function properly. Blood pressure is also important because when the blood pressure is too low, then the circulatory system might have some hard time overcoming the gravity. When it's too high, it can destroy the blood vessels. So this pressure needs to be perfectly fine, and this is also this is also regulated by concentration of certain chemical elements such as potassium and sodium. And guys, body temperature. We are warm-blooded animals, which means that our bodies have the same temperature regardless of what is happening outside. And guys, the process of sustaining the fixed body temperature is called the thermoregulation. The perfect range of body temperature starts from 35.5 and finishes at 37 degrees Celsius. In this temperature, in this body temperature, we are designed to work properly. If this temperature falls below or rises above, then we have two medical conditions we have to deal with. The first one is hypothermia, when the body temperature falls below 35.5, and this might be the result of failure of some mechanisms that the body has in order to keep this fixed temperature, or this might be the result of basically going outside with clothes that are not warm enough when it's really cold outside, of course. Here are some symptoms, but the last consequence of hypothermia is basically freezing to death. On the other side, we have hyperthermia when the temperature rises above 37 degrees. And once again, it might be the result of basically going out somewhere when it's really, really hot, and then you are in danger of a heat stroke. Or this can be a natural occurrence, which is known as fever. When we have an infection of all kinds, bacterial, viral, or it's a parasite, whatever, then the body basically raises its temperature a little bit to kill the pathogen because usually the germs, bacteria, and viruses uh, they can't multiply or reproduce as well in higher temperatures. But guys, this fever can be beneficial for you in terms of fighting a disease, but when the body temperature rises above 40 degrees Celsius, then it's a danger for life because proteins that build our bodies, they basically coagulate, which means they are destroyed in the temperatures exceeding 42 degrees. And guys, there are a few mechanisms that support thermoregulation that keep the body temperature at a fixed level, and it's the hypothalamus that is responsible for engaging and disengaging them. Podwzgórze, inaczej po polsku. This is the part of the brain that is the most crucial in deciding how to maintain this fixed body temperature. And guys, when the body is too cold, then the amount of blood flowing through the vessels will be decreased. So less blood will be flowing through the vessels in order to limit the heat losses. You will not sweat because when you sweat, droplets of water cover your skin and they evaporate. Water, in order to evaporate, needs some energy, some thermal energy that it will be taken away from your skin, cooling you down. And when it's too cold, you don't want to be colder. You start to breathe a little bit slower in order to limit the heat losses with the exhales. You start to shiver because when the muscles work, heat is generated. So if you're standing still, especially in winter, somewhere outside, you start to shiver because that generates heat. You could also move, run, jump, whatever. This would also generate heat. And when it's too cold, the body will increase the metabolic changes, metabolic processes pace. It will increase. So the power plants of each cell, mitochondrions, will burn more fuel, will burn more glucose, and this process of cellular respiration will basically generate some more heat. On the other side, we have situation when it's too hot, and guys, increase of blood flowing through the vessels to enhance the heat losses. So think of all the animals that live in warm climate. For instance, elephants or some rabbits, they have huge ears because the blood is flowing through their ears, and this is the place where the heat is lost. You start to sweat a lot when it's hot because when you sweat, the body evaporates, cooling you down. And you start to breathe a little bit faster, so the pace of heat losses is bigger. This is the diagram presenting how it works. So we'll begin here when the temperature is just high, and the signal from the nervous receptors is being passed to the hypothalamus, and the hypothalamus decides, well, it's time to start one of the mechanisms. So it sends signal to the sweat glands in order to activate them, so they start to release sweat. And after some time of sweating, the body temperature just falls down, decreases, and we are back to the point of homeostasis. On the other hand, when the temperature is too low, the signal goes to the hypothalamus, and hypothalamus decides, well, it's time to move our muscles. So the skeletal muscles start to shiver, and the temperature rises as the effect. This all leads to homeostasis back again. So we are now in the safe range of body temperature. And guys, those mechanisms are basically complex. They require cooperation of many systems because here you have uh, blood vessels, here you have skin, here you have muscles. And guys, imagine what would happen if any of those elements would just fail. Will all those processes keep on working? Can they be replaceable? I'm leaving you with that thought for now. Thanks for watching, and please go to the assignments section.